preparing to stream, which might mean that we're already live.
Yeah, looks like it.
And let me just switch this over real quick. This is Male Entrepreneur Podcast, and I am recording on my end, record on this computer. And we are live in 3, 2. All right. Welcome back to Male Entrepreneur, the podcast for men who win, with your host, Prudeep Sangha. Prudeep, how you doing today, man?
Doing fairly well, man. Fairly well. Kind of feel like I'm in the midst of construction chaos here. We got buildings on both sides of our homes here, so they're building brand new homes. So it's every time I go out, that's all I hear is construction going on, which is pretty interesting. I'm a big fan of construction. I like building new homes, so it's kind of fun.
Nice. We have a kind of hyperbolic title for this week's episode, Killing Business. And you said the silent business killer. What's that all about?
Yeah. Well, first, that's a big word that you use. What was that? Hyperbolic? What'd you say?
Yeah. That's me getting all Alex Jones on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, we're talking about the impact of stress, basically, and the impact that it's having on people. It's having on businesses right now, because I think so many people are so stuck and stressed with the quarantine, not being able to go to work, not having a job, executives, having to deal with laying off employees. All of this stuff is accumulating, basically, and people are getting stressed out, and it's having an even bigger effect on the economy than we think, because when people are stressed out, they don't make good decisions. And so that is the biggest challenge right now that I'm seeing, is that people are at such a high stress level that they're not able to think effectively. And it's, unfortunately, it's a reality of the situation that we're in right now.
So I kind of want to examine each of these maybe a little bit more, just because I think a lot of times, especially in a stressed out state, it's real easy to forget the other people in the scenario. And you did a really good job of saying, on one end, one guy is stressed out because he lost his job. On the other end, the other guy's stressed out because he had to let 8 people go from his business. Empathy and stress and the importance of it being there in order to work together. It seems like when a situation calls for us to work together the most, that it's the most needed, there's things that are going on in our bodies and in our minds that are causing us to be the least able to rise to the occasion.
Yeah, it is. And if we take a look at it from a scientific perspective, stress basically inhibits how your proper thinking patterns, basically, and it stops you from going to that second or higher level of thinking, because stress consumes energy, it consumes calories, it consumes mental capacity. And so if majority of our thoughts are being consumed by stress, then how are we going to, how many of our thoughts are we going to have left over for the productive thoughts? This actually spurred it was really interesting, because I have this gentleman that is working on a project for me, a very smart gentleman. And he basically came back and said, you know what, I don't think I can do this right now. And I said, well, what's happening? And his spouse is actually in China, in Wuhan, and his daughter is back there too. And they're separated, because they had to separate the daughter because it's in a safer area. She's living in a safer area, but his wife is under a lot of stress right now, and she's at the point where she's getting depressed and even having suicidal thoughts. And I just felt for this guy. I totally felt for her, because I was like, here we are complaining about quarantine and, not being able to go out and hang out at the beach and stuff like that. And here's a guy that is completely stuck. He can't even do anything. He's here in Canada, and he can't even fly over, because obviously the borders are shut down, and his wife's talking about suicide. His daughter's not there. And it was just kind of, it always puts things in perspective that, when we have a certain level of stress, there's always someone else that has some more. But that also talks about, because he basically said, I can't think properly. I can't work on this project for you. And I see so many people in this situation right now that they're at such a high stress level, they can't even think properly. They're becoming absent-minded.
Yeah. It can be overwhelming. And you said it's mental energy. Making decisions requires energy. thinking things out requires energy, and stress just zaps that energy out of you. What I want to approach this from two angles. I want to approach it, number one, from the person listening and they're at home, either they're working from home or maybe they've been laid off, and we're watching. I don't know if it's the same in Canada, but domestic violence is spiking. Drug relapses, alcohol relapses are spiking right now. Suicide is spiking right now. For the people that are stressed out at their wits end, both at home and people that maybe there's essential workers who are still having to go to work and they're stressed because they're right there at ground zero, or there's the boss that's looking at payroll and saying I can't make payroll this month. From all those different areas, what are some ways that people can deal with stress? What are some things that people that might find themselves in those situations can actively be doing to reduce the stress and increase their cognitive abilities during all of this?
Yeah, there's so many things that we can do. The first one is always have the end in mind, because we will get through this. And it goes back to that old ancient saying, right? This too shall pass. It's what we focus on that really causes our levels of stress to increase. So if we're focused on the stuff that's not working out well for us, the stuff that, I lost my job, if we're continuously dwelling on those negative energy channels, that's what creates stress even more. That's what perpetuates it. So what you focus on, and I basically say what is focal is causal. So whatever you focus on eventually becomes your reality. So it's important to focus on the right things, and we will get through this. We will get through this. It's going to be a tough time, right? It's like walking through the desert, but there will be, we're going to get to the water on the other side. We will eventually get there. So that's one thing. The second is the people that you hang around with. If you hang around with low energy people, you're going to be low energy as well. So you want to be around people who have positive energy, that have a positive vibe. That is so important. There's the psychological component, but then there's, if we take a look at it from a completely different level, a spiritual component. People give off positive energy, and people give off negative energy. You want to hang around with people that have positive energy. You consume that. There's just some people that you can be around that they don't even have to say much, but you just feel comforted by their presence,
Mhm.
right? Those types of people, those are the type of people that you want to surround yourself with. The other thing is nature. This is actually a blessing in a lot of ways, because people are getting out more. They're actually going for walks, or going for walks through trails, for example, bike riding, whatever that is. Nature has been shown to actually help improve stress levels and actually increase happiness. Also, faith. Faith is important as well. Faith and meditation. If you don't have a religious background, or maybe a spiritual background, those are the things that to focus on. Meditation is another one. Meditation is a major factor for reducing stress. I know personally that anytime I'm stressed, I'm going to go meditate for an hour, because I come out of that from a completely different perspective, right? It's like reset, right? It's going to your computer and actually just hitting the reset button. You need that every once in a while. Sleeping is not enough. Actually, there's a lot more research that has come out that says meditation actually has a better impact on your body when it comes to recovery, cognitive ability, than actually sleep does, which is really interesting when you take a look at that. So, meditation compared to sleep, obviously, you need both, but meditation I highly recommend as well. Eating healthy, right? Eating healthy is something that's very important. I think this is a tough time for a lot of people, because people are consuming more alcohol than usual. People are consuming more drugs, as you mentioned, or some other substance that is getting them through this. Your body is a big component of how you feel. It's a big component of your stress levels. If you're not feeding your body properly, your stress levels will rise, your inflammation will rise, right? Your body will tell you, this is, what, I just can't handle this. And you're going to feel crappy as a result of that. So staying from healthy, I highly recommend exercise. I highly recommend eating healthy as much as you can. I'm not saying don't drink or don't smoke or that kind of stuff, because you have to get through this, but you just don't want to overconsume those kinds of things. The other one I like to say, Nathan, is just watch funny stuff, man. Just watch funny movies. It's probably one of the best remedies out there. It's funny. My wife said to me last night, because I haven't finished the Tiger King series. We watched an episode yesterday, because it's just so funny. I was just like, oh my god, this is just crazy. But it's just interesting to see people's psychology behind it. And my wife said to me at the end of the night when we were going to bed, she's like, let's not watch another episode ever again, because that stuff just messes with your mind. And so you have to be very careful what you consume. That is so important. And I know you and I, Nathan, are big, you can say vocal about this when it comes to media and other stuff as well. What you consume is eventually what your thoughts bring in. Let's be realistic here. And I don't think a lot of people understand this. As I've said this on a number of other episodes, but you have on average about 80,000 thoughts a day. Think about that. That's a lot of thoughts. 99% of those thoughts are unconscious at the unconscious level. That means you don't really have a clue about what those thoughts are. Everything that comes into your brain is such, uh, it's this information sponge. It just takes in everything and it filters things out, but it also keeps a lot of that stuff in its memory. And that memory is at an unconscious level. So even though you think you're tough and you can stand this, there's still some kind of impact. So the best way to counter that is to not even expose yourself to it, right? So it's like radiation. Yeah, you can go in there with a hazmat suit and feel like you're protected, but why the heck would you go into that zone in the first place, right? Stay clear. So those are some things, Nathan, that people can do to actually get past the stress levels there, or at least get through it, right?
So this is going to be a little bit of a woo question, and I don't know if maybe even there is an answer that we can get to, but I'm wondering. I know personally, I feel like my thoughts have more of an impact on reality than just, oh, you wrote it down and you decided you were going to do it, and therefore you started taking action, and other people were attracted to that action, and so they came together and helped you make it. I kind of have a little bit of a woo belief that there's actually more of a spiritual power in thought, and that when you're thinking positively or when you're thinking about your goals, it feels like kind of the universe conspires to help make it possible. So I'm wondering, on a mass level, when and this is a two-part question. Number one, what do you think about that? And then if you agree with that, on a mass level, when the majority of the Earth's population is consumed with negative thoughts, does that impact where we go as a people? I don't even know if I worded that question correctly, but I want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, way to open up Pandora's box, right? It's one of those things. Yeah, in all honesty, I don't believe it's woo at all. It's my one of my core beliefs. I'm a very spiritual person from that perspective. I've been taught that ever since I was a kid. I've practiced it myself, and for me personally, I've seen the reality of it. Your thoughts create your reality at some point in time. And I think, people have talked about this for thousands of years. People talked about this in the secrets of Babylon, right? Or ancient times. And even philosophers talk about this from the perspective of vibration. We are all basically, as human beings, we are a source of energy in space. That's all we are. If you take a look at physics, it has shown that all we are basically energy. The amount of matter in the entire human species, if you condense it, you can put that into a sugar cube. The actual amount of matter, physical matter. Everything else is just empty space and energy. And so when you take a look at this, you're like, wow, this is phenomenal. If you really get down into the science, Nathan, the reason why I talk about science is because some people, don't like the woo-woo stuff. But that's why I'm saying, if you take a look at the science is now intersecting with the spiritual world, and it's actually confirming a lot of the stuff that we believe in, that we are energy. Our thoughts create a vibration, and that vibration, when you take a look at it, a thought is a higher level vibration. When vibration actually slows down and the frequency actually slows down, that's what they say creates matter. That's what creates reality, the physical space around us. So if you're thinking something, it will eventually come through, because that's how you're going to act. That's how you're going to attract like frequencies in your life. And it's not just at the conscious level, Nathan, it's at the unconscious level as well. Our unconscious brains are more powerful than our conscious brains. That's why we have to train our unconscious brain as well. That's why we have to be very cognizant. But to answer your question, yes, I truly believe that what you think is eventually what comes true. If we talk about this, I've said this before, that things like visualization. That's why visualization is so powerful, because you're creating that frequency. You're creating that frequency that's actually put out there. Your muscles actually start to fire that way. Your brain cells start to fire that way, and it actually attracts. And there's a lot of studies too that have shown. If you take a look at the Heart Math Institute, I highly recommend you do that. I've talked about this on previous episodes where you could take a heart out, you can surround it by positive conversations around people. It will beat differently than when people are talking negatively around it. So yes, you do create your reality. So what we're talking about is consciousness. And consciousness is basically the premise is that everybody is part of a singular consciousness,
Mhm.
right? We just have our individual worlds that just come collectively together. So, how is this impacting the world as a whole? Man, we are just flushing ourselves down the toilet right now
Yeah,
from a con.
I was wondering, sometimes you get depressed and then you look for other reasons to be depressed and it makes you more depressed, and it's like a downward spiral, and it feels kind of like if we're not careful as a society, we might get into that tailspin and just continue down a downward spiral. And that was, I guess, at the gist of why I was asking the question.
Yeah, loaded question. This is why I'm so adamant about leadership, Nathan. This is why I'm so adamant about whether it's politics or the community or whatever it is. Leadership is so important because we need positive leaders. We need realistic leaders, not like, yeah, I know everything's going to be great. We need positive leaders that are bringing people together, that are, actually uniting people as a society, as a country, as a nation, as a global community, because it definitely impacts us. It definitely impacts us as a whole. When another country is not doing well, there is a direct impact on this world, right? There is a direct energy connection that we have to pay attention to. So it's so easy for us to be blind to everything that's happening. One of the things I keep popping up to my mind right now is all of the, we're talking about the stuff that's happening here. And I go back to some of the biggest countries in the world. I'm going to India, for example. They have the entire country on lockdown, over 1 billion people. How many people are starving to death? How many people actually stop? They were talking about when kids when they locked down the country, they basically, I don't know how many hours they said, but it was just ridiculous. They said, we're going to lock the country down, you guys better get into it. So people were walking because they shut the trains down for days, and some of them lost their kids on the way because they couldn't feed them, they couldn't give them any food, all that kind of stuff, shelter. Imagine that kind of stuff that's happening right now. So that's why it's so important for us. I don't want this to be a depressing episode, but I think it's important for us to pay attention to what's the reality out there and actually bring our consciousness levels up as a whole. Right. And I think the biggest thing we can do, Nathan, is just giving a little bit of love goes a long way.
Mhm.
That's essentially what it is. Just love another person, give a little bit of love, a smile. I'm going for walks in the morning, and I'm telling you, it's tough to get a smile from people these days.
Really?
Yeah, it's
I
crazy.
I just go out of my way to give smiles, and usually they get reciprocated. But okay, we went all over the place
Yeah.
on this week's episode. I think we covered a couple of things. I think there's room to explore some of these other topics in further episodes as well. Um, if people
I,
want to,
well, I
oh,
was going to interrupt you there because I know you're eager to talk about, our conversations offline for listeners out there. We've been talking about spirituality, the impact of meditation, consciousness. So stay tuned because we will be talking about that. I think if you're really interested in terms of even some of the top successful people are big, you can say supporters of this. Take a look. There's actually some science behind it. We're going to be talking about that in a future episode.
nice. All right, man. If people want to make sure that they're subscribed and they don't miss future episodes, where can they go?
Yeah, simply check out our YouTube channel, youtube4men.com or malepodcast.com.
Awesome. All right, man. Until next time, we'll catch you later.
Can't wait.